back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. This is the Midtown Madness podcast. Pete, we have a very special guest. I guess you could say he's not an insider anymore. He's uh, he's um, he's left the profession, so to speak.
Yeah, he has, and we're embracing his outsider status now. You know, as soon as we heard the news that Mike Wilson was going to be leaving the program, we were both like, "Oh, we got to talk to him.
Have
Let's
to.
talk to him. Let's see what he's up to next, and let's see what his experience was like." It seemed like a natural move.
Yes, I am. I am very excited for this one. Been able to been fortunate enough to become friendly with him over the last, oh gosh, what are we looking at? 6 years now. So he's a great dude. So excited to get him on the podcast and let him tell his story. It's not a long form one. We're just gonna, pick his brain about the big moments that he was here for in Billiken industry. He had a lot of stuff, a lot of things happen as the Dobo and the what is he student success coordinator, I think, or I can't remember what the his
Support services coordinator, I
support
think is the
services
title.
coordinator. I knew it was an alliteration of some sort, but
Yeah.
yeah. So excited to chat with Mike Wilson, and we're gonna over to that interview right now. All right, Billiken fans, as promised, we're bringing on Mike Wilson. He was on staff with Travis Ford from 2016 to this past year, 2022, and is now entering the workforce. The cube monkey workforce. Mike Wilson.
How's it
Uh,
going, guys?
Welcome to the show, man. It's going great. It's good to hear from you, man. I've gotten the pleasure. I mentioned it before we brought you on, but I've gotten the pleasure to become friendly with you over the past 6 years, and it's been a real treat. Happy to have you on. But you went to TCU, man. You
I did.
you went the roundabout way to the St. Louis TCU cult.
I did. It was kind of a weird way to get all the way here to St. Louis, but uh, starting at TCU, I grew up just outside of Fort Worth, in a small town called Aledo, Texas, and both my parents had gone to TCU, and my sister was at TCU at the time, and so I figured I might as well just follow in their footsteps and go ahead and follow them and be a Horn Frog. I was there for 4 years. Yeah.
That's what it is, yeah.
And, was there for 4 years, but, kind of my first year, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I kind of was just, trying to find my way like every college kid does. But one of my friends was like, "Hey, why don't you come be a practice player for the women's team? Like, we're looking for people. We'd love to have you." And so I was like, "Sure." Like, I knew the head coach at the time, Jeff Mitty, who's now at K State. But I went to school with his kids. They lived out in Aledo too. So I was like, "Well, I might as well do it. Get to enjoy basketball, be around it." And kind of that's where I fell in love with college basketball. Being around that every day, being able to practice, help as a manager, help with video, be able to do a little bit of everything. And so kind of from there, I was like, "Well, let's see if I can make this a career, or at least see where it goes." So my uncle knows a few people who are close with Bill Self. So in the summer, I was like, "Hey, that's a good way to meet coaches, is work their summer camps." So I went and worked Bill Self's camp for a summer, and I met a high school coach from Oklahoma there who had worked the Oklahoma State camp. So then he got me in touch with somebody. So the following summer, I worked Coach Ford's camps at Oklahoma State my junior and senior, after my junior and after my senior year of college. So that's how I kind of got to know Coach Ford, meet him. And then, after I worked his camp, after I had graduated from college, they had offered me a graduate assistant position. So I was like, "Sure, why not?" So was a graduate assistant for him for 2 years, and then yeah, ended up
Uh,
here at St. Louis.
oh, go ahead, Pete.
Well, I was going to ask about the backup just to one thing there, the practice player
Yeah.
thing. Were you a high school player, or how did you catch on doing that?
So I played basketball for a few years in high school. Had played all growing up. Had been involved with the Dallas Mavericks a little bit. So I've been around basketball. I played tennis also in high school, and I love basketball. Basketball was something that I had always enjoyed, and been around and grew up playing and watching. Um, so I always loved playing, and it was just another opportunity to keep playing. Was being a practice player.
What's that dynamic like? Because I think that's super interesting. Because I mean, I knew a few guys that did it at SLU, and like, it's such a crazy thing that like, who I don't know who came. I want to know who like came up with this idea because it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean it's great for them. It gives them great practice, and they don't have to use their own players to practice against each other. They can work on rosters, rotations, all sorts of different things while being able to go against people who are going to be more physical or just as physical as the people that they're going to play against. So it's a really good preparation for them to practice with every day and end up being successful on the court.
So what was the kind of transition like for you? Because you did work with the women's basketball team as graduate manager,
No,
or
I worked as a just a student manager for.
okay, student manager. So
Yeah.
moving over to the men's side as like a graduate manager on Oklahoma State, was there much of a difference there as far? I mean, obviously there was probably a big difference as far as travel and whatnot and perks that go along with it. I would imagine,
Yeah,
but just from women to men.
it was a little bit of an adjustment. Also, my role was drastically different. Um, being a practice player and manager, you're really kind of only there for the home games, and you're there for practice. You're not really doing as much like office work or anything like that. So it was just really different. Trying to figure out the different culture going from TCU to Oklahoma State, just that dynamic as well. But it was a little bit of a transition, but probably just the speed of the game too, and just trying to grow my knowledge was, I thought as an eager college kid, you think you kind of know a lot, but then you get put in a situation like that where you're kind of involved with the day to day and involved with the um, planning, scouting, and it's a lot, and it was kind of a growing experience for me, which ended up being a good thing for me.
Your bio on SLU's website says you were both a graduate manager and assistant video coordinator. Was that did your title change from one season to the next in your 2 seasons there? Or was that just kind of a dual role, or
That
what?
was kind of that was kind of what the role of the GA ship was at Oklahoma State. We had our video guy. We basically had like a video room. So it was the head video coordinator, and then the GAs were um, basically assistant video coordinators. So we had hands in all of the different scouts. We were basically assigned to an assistant coach, and we kind of worked with them on all their scouts for the year. And but still, on the court duties, rebounding, all the things that you could do as a manager, um, but just kind of had more of like an administrative video, gather all that experience. Kind of had your hand in everything, but a lot of it was mainly directed at video, which is why, when Coach Ford got the job at St. Louis, that's kind of what he brought me on as, is, essentially the video coordinator, so that, because I had that experience with him for a couple of years.
OSU is kind of famous for obviously T. Boone Pickens, football being a massive, uh, just it's a huge money maker. It's hugely funded. I'm curious, it's always struck me that I feel like Travis Ford, and I'm jumping around here because actually first of all I'll ask you, what was the dynamic like between working for, say, the basketball program and like the guys that would work for like the football program?
It was, I mean, we had a good relationship. It was always hard to really see them a whole lot because their offices were in a different part of the complex. But, so it was a little difficult to connect sometimes, but we had great relationships with all the people at Oklahoma State. And, I definitely enjoyed my time there and really loved it. The people were amazing and, definitely made Stillwater a better place to live was the people.
I'm wondering kind of what it's like when you're at a program where there is a sudden coaching change. Like when they made the decision to move on from Coach Ford in Stillwater, and that's for you specifically. That's kind of if I have my timeline correct, you're finishing up your master's right then too. So that's take us to that period, those last few months there of your time in Stillwater, and what the environment was like during that.
For me, it was kind of, I knew that my time at Oklahoma State was going to come to an end, most likely. Finishing up my master's degree, and usually kind of that's how the progression goes. You finish up your second year GA, and then you kind of go on and find a full time job somewhere else, and kind of grow from there. I just happened to get lucky that, you know, unfortunately, Coach got let go at Oklahoma State, but fortunately, it kind of worked out. Because it opened up a position for me to get a job on his staff, and I was one of the first people he called. So it was kind of a whirlwind of a situation because it was kind of right around the Final Four when he got the job and called me. Actually, was down in, what was it, Houston, I believe, when he called me, and he had just gotten or was about to do his press conference, and we met right after that. So it was kind of a whirlwind of a transition, but it was kind of unfortunate at the time, but looking back, it was at least fortunate for me. And I think Coach loves it here, and he's expressed that he loves it. So I think it ended up in the long run being an okay thing.
You mentioned, you say, you made a point to say he loves it here, and it all, like, I want, what I was gonna mention was that I wonder when a coach goes from a big time school, or big time, but like a big school with a big football program, he's the head basketball coach. What do you think Travis is feeling like? Not feeling, but like, where do you, when you're not the show, right? Now he's the show of the athletic department, for the most part. I mean, soccer is really, really good here, but basketball is the 1A, right?
Yeah.
How much of that do you think he enjoys it more here than, say, a place that has big time football?
I don't think it's necessarily the football piece of it. I think, it's the people, it's the community, it's I think everybody really rallies around the Billikens and really rally around the program as a whole, not just basketball. And people love Billiken athletics and what soccer's doing and what everybody's doing and the transformation that's happening. Like, Chris May's vision, Janet's vision, like it's great, and it's a great place to be. And I think that's what makes it, such a special place, and kind of the differentiator. Not to say that Oklahoma State wasn't, but it's a little bit more of a family. There it's more of like a big kind of well-oiled machine. But here it's kind of a family. Everybody's involved. Everybody's kind of together, and I think that's what makes it so special here.
More like Cheers.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So after a few years after being at St. Louis, you're promoted to director of basketball operations. I think that's a title that a role that a lot of people who listen to this show would be familiar with, but maybe not everybody's familiar with everything that we called it DBO, but I know some people say DOBO. I don't know which acronym you prefer, but anyway, can you kind of walk us through what that role is for the basketball program?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. We might need a little more time.
Yeah, I know. That's why I asked it.
we got
Uh, yeah, but I guess for me, coach trusted me with a lot of stuff. Um, so I had my hand in a little bit of everything, whether it was, um, helping with scheduling, whether it was academics, housing, um, camps, um, everything with team travel, meals, basically anything that you can think of to keep the machine rolling and the program going forward. That's what I had a hand in that. So, if coach needed to make an appearance somewhere, people would usually ask me to check to see if he was available, or just little things like that. But um, basically had a touch in a little bit of everything.
how do you handle the individual tastes of players and coaches when it comes to handling meals after games or meals on the road?
It's we kind of have our standard um meals when we go on like road trips. We have the kind of the same hotel food, and every team has the same thing. You got your chicken, your pastas, and potatoes, all that sort of stuff. But when it came to like, if we were on our extended road trip, we'd order lunch from like Jimmy John's or wherever, Panera, Snarfs, or any place. But I tried to do it, um, especially with COVID. I had to do a lot of like individual ordering. So I'd pick a restaurant and they'd tell me what they wanted, and I'd put it in an Excel sheet and send it to the restaurant, and they'd get it all together, label everything for me, individually bagged. So um, it's kind of a fine line. And each team is different. So every year I felt like, okay, what would they want? And I would usually ask them what they wanted, and they'd tell me. Because some years, all they wanted was just pizza and wings after games. So you just get a bunch of pizza and wings and let them go to town. But this past year they didn't really, they liked it, but it wasn't what they wanted. So I'd pick, McAllister's or kind of whatever, and let them kind of order whatever they wanted. So whatever they, so they kind of had a little bit personal touch on what they could eat on the road.
You mentioned COVID, and I want to. Your first season as director of basketball operations ended unceremoniously uh, with a canceled season. This is the first time that sports have been like major sports, like professional sports, college sports, have been canceled since World War frickin' two. Like, and you were in charge of scheduling and flights and like how are you avoiding like an emotional breakdown when you have to figure out how to get these kids that are in Brooklyn back home?
It's
And how did that all go down?
It was, I mean, wow, that was an interesting year. My first year as Dobo for sure. So I think on one of the first road trips, the bus didn't show up or something like that. We can get to that at a different time. But yeah, Brooklyn it was crazy. I mean, it was kind of ominous, going in there, knowing that, kind of the first few cases had been in New York. So, you're kind of there and you're kind of like, don't know what to expect. And so we kind of wake up the next day and we got practice kind of, I think it was like right before lunch or whatever. We had practice right at NYU. Um, and we're kind of just hanging out. We don't really know what's going on because the NBA had just canceled, the night before, and we didn't know what was going to happen. Or maybe it was the Rudy Gobert tested positive. I can't remember what it was, but
Rudy Gobert licking the microphone.
yeah, seriously. So we're in practice, and I'm kind of with one of our administrators, Janet. She and I are kind of just sitting outside of practice, and there's other leagues that are kind of rumbling about maybe canceling or shutting down. So we kind of start preliminarily looking, where's everybody from, where do they need to fly to, um, and then all of a sudden, Chris May gets the call that we're going to shut it down, and we're in the middle of practice, we'd been practicing for an hour. And so basically coach had to bring everybody in, and we had to shut it down. But from there, I mean, it was a mad dash. And thanks to Janet Oberle, she helped me tremendously. Like, I wouldn't have been able to get it all done if it wasn't for her. I mean, she and I were on the phone, we were on the computer, we were, calling people Ubers to their house from the hotel. And I mean, it was a mad dash to get everybody out and home, because SLU's campus was going to close too and send their people home. So we had to send all of our players to wherever they were from New York. And thankfully we got back safe and got everybody home. But it was, I mean, I was sitting on the plane and I was like, what is happening? Like, it was kind of a sunken feeling, just because, we had won it the year before. We were feeling good. We were rolling. We were 23-6 going into the tournament, and we were excited. We were fired up. We thought we were, had a chance to go win the thing. But it kind of sucks it ended that way. But it was an experience that I'll remember for a lifetime.
Yeah, that was that stretch where you guys had just won 5 in a row, and they were all good conference games, good conference opponents, top half teams, and you beat them by double digits every single one of them. I know VCU was in there, and
Well, that was
that
St. Bonaventure at home.
yeah,
Maybe?
yeah. So that, I mean, the best basketball of the season was being played right there. One of the best stretches, honestly, that they've played since Coach Ford's been here. So we were ready for that tournament. Really having the rug pulled out from everybody there.
I know. And it was kind of like, from the previous year when we would won the 4 in 4 days to win it all. And we were just so amped up to be back and so excited, because we had that, taste of success, and we just wanted more of it. And that's what we just wanted, to go out there and win it all again, back to back.
You mentioned Janet in there, and Janet's. I love Janet. Janet has gotten me out of more binds than I would like to admit. But Janet's kind of had an arc. She worked. For people to know, Janet Oberle was for most of my time that I spent as an adult around SLU. She was when I was in college, she was the academic services coordinator. She was the head of academic service. So like compliance director, right? So she was not the she was not the person you wanted to deal with if you were a student athlete, because she was she was on top of you, but like for good reason. But now what does she bring as the associate athletic director for people that may not know exactly her kind of how she fits into the athletic department and what all good she does for the athletic department?
I mean, she's the best. She's the world's best human being, but outside of work, she's truly cares about people. And I think that's what makes her and Chris so special, is, both hand in hand. They both care about people, and they really care about the student athletes and their student athlete experience, because they want every single person who walks through that door to be successful on the field, off the field, in life, and whatever they do. And they want to provide the best experience possible. And so Janet really has a hand, and she's been there for a really long time. So she's got connections on campus. She's really built into the SLU community, more than people probably realize. And everybody goes to her for everything, because she knows it all. And she really, I credit my success to her too, her and Chris, for believing in me and trusting in me and really pushing me to be successful. So yeah, she's one of a kind, but she's really what helps drive SLU to be great.
Yeah, I think she, if I'm class of 05, I think she is the last person in the athletic department who was still around in my era. Which isn't, I mean, she's not old. It's not to say she's old or anything. She's just been there since she was in college. She's been at SLU. I mean, like, so her experiences from an athlete herself all the way to what she is now, which is, Dr. Janet Oberle, an associate athletic director. She's got run the whole gamut there, and yeah, she does everything.
She
Yeah, she's
was
tough.
I think she was a member of the first
Yeah,
women's soccer
women's
team at
soccer team.
SLU.
Yeah, I think that's
And
right.
yeah, that just an absolute A plus human being. Just uh, does whatever like she can do to help you out no matter what. So Janet Oberly is true, like you said, truly one of a kind. I wanna jump back. I love circling back because I'm sitting here and I'm listening, but little things like inside baseball, like little things like you said the 2019 tournament. Now I want to talk 2019 tournament.
Perfect.
Man, what a ride that was! Um, just talk to me about that team, man, and what made that team so special.
I just think that team was by that time of the year, we hadn't done as much as kind of we wanted. And I think really it took us to kind of take a few lumps along the way and, go through some tough times and adversity. And really, by the time we had gotten there, we were like, you know what? We had talked before. I remember this. Coach brought out the whiteboard on the court, and it might have been the day before we left or the day that we were leaving. And he wrote on the board, he said, why not us? We have more talent and just as talented as everybody else in this league. What are the reasons why we can't go win this? We can go play 4 games in 4 days and win this. Like we have it in us. And really, I think inspired the team to really reflect back on the season and just say, you know what? I think we can go do this. And they believed. And I think once we got the first game under our belt, and slowly we just kept getting more confident and more confident. And I think, beating, Dayton, Davidson, and, kind of those premier teams. And I think it just fueled us and it fueled us all the way to the end. And I think we had such a good mix of, Tremaine was playing tremendous, Javon was playing unreal defense. And I mean, that team defensively was probably one of the more special teams defensively that I've seen. To be able to, I mean, we played, I can't tell you how many different defenses. I mean, we were switching up left and right and, playing zone, man, press, not press. And we just kept teams on their heels. And that's hard to prepare for in a tournament setting. For us who plays so many different defenses, it's hard, especially, we played that 1-3-1 that was pretty instrumental in that run. But, DJ Foreman at the top of that, you had some big guys that was, it was just a fun experience. And, I probably got 3 hours of sleep the whole weekend, but it was more than worth it. It was more than worth it.
You mentioned Tremaine, and he really came alive in that tournament after kind of I don't know if tumultuous is the right word,
A
but
character arc, Peter. A
yeah,
character arc.
I mean he certainly had a season that had its ups and downs. What did you see from him and his progression that kind of made him come alive in that tournament?
I think just from kind of a maturity standpoint, I think slowly over the season, you could definitely see him mature as a human, as a player, as a leader, and it was fun to see. It was fun to see him, kind of come alive and come into his own after he kind of, bought into everything that we were doing, and it was really great to see him kind of lead us because that's the kind of player that we recruited him to be that kind of mixed scoring combo point guard type player, and he came through.
I want to talk about the Bonaventure dynamic because you go back to 2019, you beat them in the final, and then this year, obviously, you guys went on just an absurd sequence of events. But I want to zone in on specifically this year because that specific moment where it's coming down to the wire and he misses two free, or Nesbitt fouls him, and then he's got two free throws. I mean, what is going on the bench at that point?
I guess not even just that game. I think that's basketball in general. You know, one moment you think you're going to lose, and the next moment you come out on top. It's, you know, I guess that's why you play the game. But it was a pretty, you know, coach does a great job of always trying to stay confident in situations. So, you know, he tried to keep the bench encouraged. But I know for myself, I was a little kind of like, oh man, here we go. But no, he missed the first one, and then I think everybody kind of, you know, perked up a little bit. I was like, okay, I think we can at least go to overtime, and you know, I think we can hang with them and beat them, and then he missed the second one, and I think everybody was kind of like, wow. But
And the
it was kind of
putback.
special too because
Yes, the putback.
you know, it was special, you know, because Ford Stuen, he always had the St. Bonaventure scout, and I'll never forget, you know, his last game, or one of his last games when we played. I guess that would have been his last game that he coached. You know, he had the St. Bonaventure scout, and I remember you were playing in the A10 tournament at, was it VCU or wherever we played, um, and he was so upset after the game because he knew we should have beat him, and so I think that was a special moment of beating them in the tournament. It's kind of, for at least from my perspective, it was kind of for him. So I thought that was kind of a special moment.
Yeah, that really seems to have grown into a pretty heated rivalry too. It's kind of maybe an unexpected one, because when we, you know, come into the A10 and look at the A10, Bonaventure does not seem like a natural choice for a school that that could get heated against St. Louis. But for whatever reason, and maybe just like people like Zach and I, who are kind of like online and on Twitter, like they really seem to hate us, you know. And then of course we had a little bit of an incident with Nesbitt in the last game with them and everything. But it's kind of interesting how that rivalry's developed.
Yeah, and I think that the rivalry came about just because they've gotten so good. I mean,
Yeah.
both teams have really risen to the top and really trying to fight for first. And I think that's kind of where it all stems from. And both teams really being ultra competitive, because they have a lot of guys on their team or did that, you know, they wanted to prove themselves, and they felt like they had something to prove. And then us, as like a building program, we felt like we had something to prove too. So I think that's kind of where it all stemmed from. But um, you know, I didn't think it was kind of like you said, it's kind of a random, I
Yeah.
guess, rivalry, but we never really called it a rivalry. I guess we really only talked about the Dayton game being a rival game. But no, St. Bonaventure, that kind of, yeah, they're ultra competitive.
Do you think it has anything to do with kind of the juxtaposition of kind of Bonaventure is Catholic, but it's in, you know, a rural part of New York, kind of off the beaten path, and St. Louis kind of is the bigger city. You know, the program that may get the, you know, when you're talking about the H, and you're like, oh, the you know, the Davidsons, the St. Louises, the Daytons, the VCUs, and nobody in Bonaventure maybe thinks that they don't get the credit that maybe we undeservedly get. Is that, I don't know. I just sometimes I feel like that feeds into it.
I would think so. I mean, I don't know from their perspective, but you know, it seems like, you know, they always have a chip on their shoulder, which they should. I mean, Mark Schmidt's built a great program there, and I think sometimes they don't get enough credit that they deserve. But you know, I think that's why they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and um, I guess it could play into it. But I really don't know where they come from on it, or where they stand, or you know, we never really saw it as a rival, but it was always, we always knew that they came to play because they did have a chip on their shoulder.
We talked about the chaos of the 2020 season ending, but what about that fall, when now you're going into a non-conference that's kind of being truncated? And not only that, but as the games are coming up, people are basically tearing up their schedules and starting over on the fly. What did that do for your role in that time period, as we're basically just doing everything day to day?
It was an experience. You know, we basically threw an MTE together within a few days to make it happen. You know, here at campus. So It wasn't just me who pulled that off. It was a little bit of everybody. Coach Ford getting on the phone with Will Wade and Chris May and Janet working behind the scenes to figure out all the testing pieces and getting all the hotels blocked off for the other teams. But it was crazy how we were supposed to play. What was it, Evansville maybe? And we were at shoot around, and they had called and said that they had a guy with symptoms and couldn't come. And so, we basically had to scrap the whole day and kind of start over after you'd already put in all the work and all the prep. And it was kind of, it was weird, like no fans in the stands and everyone was spread out. It was just like, it just was kind of a weird feeling at first.
What was the? I know that like West Pine Bills on Twitter wants to bring back suits. Talk about the weirdness of it all. The progression away from suits. Where do you stand on it, and how do you remember that playing out? As far as like, did Ford just show up one day and be like, guys, no more? And how pissed was Ford Stuen?
Well, I think it all came about because, I think we started the year wearing suits. Maybe I can't remember, but
who can remember that year?
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot that happened, so there's a lot that I can't remember. But I think just seeing everybody else, not no fans in the stands, and seeing other people like in the NBA and all the other schools like trying to go more casual. So it was kind of like, well, let's try it out and see how we like it, see how we feel, and it ended up kind of sticking, and that's what we kind of went with going forward. But coach loves suits. He's a little bit more of a traditional guy, but I think he likes being comfortable too. So there's some days where he's like, I wish I could wear sweatpants on the sidelines, and there's other days where he's like, oh, I should probably wear a suit. So I'm more on the side of the casual look, the pullovers and golf pants and tennis shoes, just because I think you're moving around, you're active, and it's a little bit more comfortable to move. And if you look at a lot of other sports like baseball, like they wear a uniform.
We're gonna see Coach Ford wearing basketball shorts next year.
So I think it should go a little bit more casual of a look, just because a lot of other sports tend to be casual. Football, it's pretty casual attire, but I know people like suits, and I bet they make a comeback at some point, but we'll see.
No, I wanna ask you. We briefly talked about Ford Stuen, and I just kind of want to let you go and just talk whatever you want to say, man. People who have listened to this show know that Ford was great to me. Just remind everybody I just tweeted out jokingly that I would do anything to be at the Dayton game when they first brought fans back. I didn't even add anybody. I just said it as a joke, and I got a text message an hour later from Ford like, left you 2 tickets. I'm like, that's the kind of thing he did. But I want you to be able to just talk about your friend, man, because he really was what everybody says he was.
Yeah, he was one of the best humans and instrumental in my career and my growth as a professional. And we miss him dearly every day. There's some things I sit and think like, oh, I wonder what Ford would have said or what he would have been doing, or we just miss him. And he was so instrumental to my growth. And we started out, at Oklahoma State, we became close. He and I would play kind of one-on-one a little bit before the home games. And it was just fun. We had a fun relationship, and he would sit down and talk to me every day and just talk about life, talk about professional, talk about what to do, talk about everything. And he and I, when we first got here, we kind of had each other. We had each other. We were the two young guys, and um, we would go shop and look at cars, and we'd drive around and hang out and go out, and so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to see him kind of grow too, and grow and mature. And God, what just a incredible dude he was. And I know that we all miss him, and wish he was still here, but he accomplished so much in his time here on Earth. And yeah.
So this season was your last season with the Billikens and with St. Louis University. I believe, I think you're engaged now. I think I saw that. No,
No,
not yet. Not yet.
no.
I'll cut that. Cut that out.
Yeah,
We'll cut it
yeah.
out.
Edit that out real quick.
Edit that out. Shit, I just did you dirty.
Yeah. Now you put the
So
pressure on.
I know. But no. So why was this time the right time to kind of get out of coaching or get out of basketball?
It's kind of a personal thing for me, being able to spend some more time with my family, and my grandparents, and Maddie, and um,
Your
you know
non-fiance.
my non-fiance. So it's just kind of
No,
a
we can't cut it out.
personal decision to kind of step away. And I think the stuff that happened with Ford and COVID, and it just kind of put some things, it changed my perspective a little bit. And I figured now was the time to kind of make a career move and a career change before I got too old.
So what is the career move? And have you already transitioned? Or are you still kind of wrapping things up on the
Yeah,
on,
no, I've already transitioned. I've been working for um, uh, 2 weeks now, so on the new job. So yeah.
Well, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and we're obviously so impressed with the work you've done at SLU, and happy to have had you here for 6 years now, and happy you're making St. Louis kind of your home.
Yeah.
What well actually what do you love about St. Louis? Like what makes St. Louis a place you want to stay besides obviously the obvious.
Yeah, I mean, I think St. Louis is just a fun city. It's very unique. All the different neighborhoods, all the different communities that are within the larger community. Um, the food is great here. That's one thing I always tell people. I say, what is St. Louis known for? And I always say it's a great food city. It's very underrated. A lot of homegrown mom and pop restaurants. You don't see a whole lot of chains, at least in the city. Um, and obviously, like, the sports community here is awesome. And so it's really grown on me these last 6 years, and I love it. So I'm excited that I'm staying, and I'll be sitting in Chaffetz Arena eating some popcorn, and rooting on the Billikens.
Well, hey man, I can't wait to. I know we're gonna have to catch a game together. And
Albeit probably every one. So
yeah, no, I would assume so, but no, hey, can't thank you enough for finally breaking down and agreeing to come on the show after I've bothered you for a few years now. But yeah, man, hey, best of luck in the new career, and I know Billiken fans will be rooting for you, and I know we're happy to have you as a adopted St. Louisan.
yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. You guys do a lot for the athletic department, so I know they all appreciate it, and really giving everybody in Billiken athletics a voice.
Hey, thanks, man. Take it easy.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
We Mike Wilson's the best. He really, like, when people say he's the best in the biz, he really brings so much to Billiken basketball.
Yeah, I like that. I like that conversation a lot. He's a great guy, and like you said, great to have a St. Louisan. We've got a season ticket holder for life. It's cool to still have him around. Even if he's not going to be directly working with the program anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure he's very happy to no longer have me like text him asking him what the hell's going on. and he no longer has to use the canned response. I have no clue. I'm the last to know. So I'm sure I'm sure that was the main reason he got out of coaching industry. Actually, as much as he'll tell you it's everything else. Let's talk some men's hoops. We got some transfer news, sort of
Outgoing, not incoming.
outgoing. So well, hold on. Let's not scare people. Already gone.
Yes. Yeah.
We have a landing spot
Rashad Williams is going to Arkansas Pine Bluff.
where
This
he will jack 300 threes
Yeah.
next season.
Well, hopefully, because even though he was in the portal before the May 1st deadline for immediate eligibility, this will now be his fourth school in 5 years. If is it 5 or 6? I think I have that right. Cleveland State, Oakland, SLU, and now UAPB. I think it's a conference and a school. It should fit him pretty well stylistically. Like you said, he's just going to jack threes all day. I hope he's eligible so he can play. So obviously, best of luck to him with the move, and I think he'll find the minutes that he did not have at SLU.
Speaking of not having anything, tell us about all the news we have on incoming transfer.
That's a whole lot of nothing, really. I mean, there were a couple big men that we knew had reached out to.
This is not what we get paid for, Pete.
Yeah. Davion Bradford, who's a St. Louisan, who was at K-State, wound up transferring to Wake Forest, which is kind of funny because the guy who came into K-State this past season and ate up a lot of front court minutes that he probably thought he was going to get came from Wake Forest. Now he's going to Wake Forest. And Wake has kind of emerged as an unexpected competitor for SLU this spring season for transfers, with Andrew Carr going there. But there was another big from Illinois, backup big there, from Belgium, Benjamin Bosmans Verdonk. I don't know if I'm saying that perfectly, but yeah, he's going to South Carolina. There were some reports on Twitter and message boards and stuff that he'd come to SLU and visit. I'm not sure if he ever did. I know he went to South Carolina last weekend and committed midweek, so I don't know if he made it to SLU or not. I don't think he did. So anyway, a couple more bigs that sort of came and went. But as soon as we hear anything, we'll be the first to share it.
Well, yeah, on Twitter, not on the show, because we don't have that quick of a turnaround.
Right.
What about offers though, Pete? There is news outside of 2023.
Yeah, a couple new offers. And we could start with 2023, actually. We talked about a month ago about Fred Payne, who is a guy we offered. We've been recruiting him for a while. He's a combo guard out of he's playing in the Houston area, but he's from Grambling, Louisiana, and he'll play on that New Orleans-based EYBL team this summer for AAU. Live on Fleur de Lis, which is a good EYBL program. But anyway, SLU made the top 5 for him. He announced his finalists this week, along with Boston College, Houston, Tulane, and North Texas. So kind of an unusual top 5, kind of a wide range, a few different conferences there. But those are the schools, those are the 5 that have been recruiting him the hardest. And it's going to be interesting to see because it's still a little on the early side for a 2023 kid, who's, meaning he's just finishing up his junior year. He'll be a senior in the fall. It's a little on the early side to name finalists or commit. Obviously, nothing is signed. Nobody can sign until November, so there's a lot of time. And if he has a really big EYBL team or season this summer, I'm hoping that other schools don't try and get involved. You know what I mean? So hopefully that kind of stays his top 5. I really like where we stand with him. Really like his game. And then we can just hit each class once, because we've got a new offer out to a 2024 player, Chance Puryear, who's from Dallas. He plays at Carter High School.
Carter High School. SLU
was the first offer for him. He's big. He's about 6'6" and plays kind of a wing position, and he's got a big frame too. He's not skinny. He plays AAU for Southern Assault, which is an Adidas 3SSB, three stripes brand AAU. That's kind of the Adidas version of Nike's EYBL. And that's a program that SLU has a lot of familiarity with. We've been recruiting for a few years. Finley Bizjack is a 2023 recruit who plays for that team that we have offered. So per year, he's got size, he's got versatility, plays really hard. He's always moving, a little bit raw, but really high potential. So I think SLU getting in and offering first was smart because, the next day, Texas Rio Grande Valley offered, and I think, there's going to be more on the way. And then to round it out with a 2025 name, Jordan Lowry, combo guard playing in Denton, Texas at Geyer High School, which is a tough program there. Drive Nation is his AAU team on the EYBL circuit. So he plays in a backcourt along with a 5-star recruit, like a top 15 player in that class, Jeremiah Green, who's just an incredibly talented point guard. So he's more of a 2 guard in this backcourt, but really probably will run more of a point in AAU. Excellent, well-rounded skill set for his age. Plays a lot smarter, just more well-rounded than you would think for a guy that young. And it's really unusual that a great high school team has a 2 freshman backcourt. It just shows you how much talent they have. And the other interesting fact here is he's from St. Louis, but just a couple of years ago moved to the Dallas area, relocated with his family. So deep St. Louis ties there. So another one smart to kind of offer early. I think K-State and Oklahoma State are his other offers at this point.
By the way, Dallas, Frisco, awesome area. Loved visiting Frisco for the NIT 2 seasons ago now. Let's hop over on the women's side. There's been a lot of news coming out of the women's program. Longwood West, I believe, is kind of the joke now. I mean, look, it's humor. Just we're not making fun. We're not disparaging what's going on, but it is funny to see so many people moving from Longwood to St. Louis.
It is, and it's both players and coaches. I think if we have our numbers right, I think this is now 8 members of last year's Longwood program, both coaches and players who are now at SLU. I mean, that's a huge number. A basketball program is not a big amount of people. So right now it's basically the whole coaching staff plus 3 players when you include Coach Tillett's daughter. So that it's a huge number. So the 2 staff hires are Christy Jordan as director of basketball operations. She had the same role at Longwood, which makes sense. I mean, it's somebody who works well with, the head coach, who she trusts, who she knows can get the job done. We just talked to Mike Wilson. You kind of, hear all that's involved with it. So that one, makes a lot of sense. And then as her associate head coach, she hired Tiffany, am I saying this right? Sardin? It's not.
Yeah, that's what I would. Yeah,
Okay.
I think you said that right.
Yeah, so she was actually the head coach at Chicago State this past season. Actually, for the last 2 years, or was it 3 years? I think just 2 seasons. She was an assistant to Coach Tillett at Longwood before that. So this is another one. Like, even though she's done a couple of years at Chicago State, kind of another Longwood hire, especially because given the state of Chicago State's athletic program and university as a whole right now. There's some talk that they might go down a division, at least a division. There's big financial trouble at the school. So it would be, not correct to say that like there's a different culture or something, that she picked up in her 2 years there. I mean, she's really just minding a program that's in serious trouble. They didn't have a very good record these last couple of years. Tough seasons to coach there when they're in dire straits financially, going through COVID and everything too. So
I mean, they didn't really even play that. There were multiple Chicago State programs that shut down.
Yeah, it's a tough situation up there. So probably when Coach Tillett got this job, maybe put the feelers out, and she was kind of like, you know what, maybe sort of resetting and going back to the associate head coach role is probably a good fit at the moment. She's got a nice resume. I mean, she was a star in Chicago back in high school, and played a little professional ball too. And she's been an assistant at some major programs in addition to Longwood. So she's been around a lot, and has a really nice resume, I think.
Um, you did you mention Christy Jordan? You did.
We did, yeah. We
We
talked
did.
about
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
first.
So she, yeah, and then roster additions, Pete. Um, Kennedy Calhoun. We knew about. One we didn't know about is Kyla McMakin. Tell us about both of these players. And then the third would be Isabel Tillett, who is obviously not related to Rebecca Tillett at all in any sort of way. No, it's Rebecca Tillett's daughter. I don't anticipate any sort of announcement on this. I don't. I think it'd be weird to make a big deal about it. I think it's just kind of because she's a walk on. She'll
Yeah.
walk on to St. Louis.
Well, and she also didn't play last season, so I imagine eligibility wise, she's still got 4 years and just kind of resets at St. Louis and will just be a
I just
sophomore
assumed she
academically.
was just a walk on.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know how that works. But
I figured she was like a trying to think. Would like a Kramer Soderberg be an apt example? Kramer would have played though. I'm talking about like a coach's like a Selentakis or something, like a real walk on, not like a
yeah,
coach's kid preferred walk on type deal.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, she didn't play at all last season. Like,
Right.
didn't even get into a game, so I'm not really sure what the rules are there. But regardless, yeah, she's coming over. And then McMakin was Longwood's leading scorer, 18.1 points per game. She averaged about 18 in her 3 seasons there. So she came out of the gate as a big time scorer for them, and that was the case this season too. I think along with Akila Smith, who was their big front court player this past season. She was definitely one of their two best players. Like I said, leading scorer. I think that's something that probably, we've talked a little bit about what translates, up from the Big South to the A10. 18.1 points per game.
And she put up numbers in the NCAA
Yeah.
tournament too.
Yeah, that's right. So generally, when you see that level of scoring, that scoring ability translates, even if it's not going to be 18 points a game. But regardless, that's actually a pretty big transfer get. I'm imagining that had it not been this situation, she probably had some like big power conference interest. She was just say hitting the portal in any given season. But in this case, following her coach, and by the way, for as much as we joke about like, it's Longwood West, or I think I mentioned to you, like, there must just be a line of moving trucks from Farmville to St. Louis right now.
It's like the Colts moving from Baltimore to Indy.
Yeah, in the middle of the night, just a line of moving trucks down I-64.
I think I said, is she bringing the hoops with them too? Like, I think we're set on those. Sorry, we got it all out of our system. Go on.
We're done for now.
We got all the jokes out of our system.
But I think it does say a lot that like all of these people are following her. You know what I mean? It's not like they're like, I don't know, I'll see what the portal's like for me.
Now it
like,
depends if they're wearing Nikes and drinking, electric Kool-Aid. Now that's a different kind of following. It's a different kind of following. It seems like it's the good kind of following.
Good kind of following, yeah. No matching jumpsuits or anything.
Yes. Zoltan.
Yeah. So anyway, that's I think kind of an optimistic view. But what do you think? I mean, where are you at right now with all of this? And do you think what's the temperature of the fan base, the SLU fan base right now?
Man, I think there's a lot. I think it's very split, and I think a lot of people are. I think you get to a point where you are, we're critiquing the decisions being made in the moment, right? We're not saying this is going to be a good or a bad team. We're not saying we're talking about specific moves being made and specific decisions being made. We're questioning, I think, the idea that you can move things from the Big South to the A10 and have success in your first year. But I think there's also, I think I fall on the place like I'm going to give her a chance. I'm going to be in the crowd for a lot of games this year, as many as possible, you know? Um, and I'm going to support and I'm going to be there and we're going to cover them on the podcast and we're going to root for wins. And I'm in no way rooting against Rebecca Tillett, but it is odd to see a team you know, basically a coach come over and move the entire program over with her. Not the entire. I'm exaggerating, but as far as the coaching staff, I think she's brought almost the entire coaching staff with her.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I think it's just a question of what does translate, because the A10 is a jump. We talked about like the net ranking and how SLU, even in a kind of disastrous season that we had last year with all those injuries, losing season, it's the first losing season, we'd had, well, maybe not the first we'd had in a while, but it was a much worse season than we had expected. Still finished with a stronger net ranking than a team that went to the NCAA tournament. So it just shows you there's a gap there, and so that's kind of my question. But there does seem to be a lot of positivity around her and her program, and as far as I can tell, the existing players seem to kind of have taken to her. You're not seeing like, you didn't see like a wave of transfers the week after she was hired. She came in and pretty much retained everybody who said they were going to stay, maybe with one exception, and then retained the 3 out of the 4 signed players who had not asked out of their LOIs yet, who are going to kind of hang around and see what the new hire had to say. So people do seem to be taking to her. There seems to be something there. And my co-host is on mute at the moment, but doesn't know it. So let's give him a second here.
Yeah, that's me. That's on me for having game 7s on all over the place. But I think that I think there's a distinct kind of thing that I'm noticing where a lot of the players that either got out of their LOIs or decided not to stay were very much local to Wisconsin and kind of had that sort of background of a relationship with Coach Stone. It seems like they had more to their relationship than just hey, we came to SLU to play for Coach Stone, right? Like it was, I'm a Wisconsinite. I've known Coach Stone. I probably went to her camps growing up, all this stuff, and now I'm going to come play for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Whereas, like, you've got a lot of the players that are, closer to being local here, or like I think Marissa Warren's staying, a lot of that kind of stuff. And that, if you didn't have a certain opinion about Coach Stone being fired, you're listening to what Tillett has to say, and you were obviously impressed.
Yeah, that I think that all of that seems right. The other thing that makes me nervous is just the lack of a local or someone with deep local ties on the staff. I think coming in here with really your previous staff pretty much intact is a big vote of confidence in them and continuity within your culture and what you want your program to be. But in a big market like St. Louis, I think it's just a little different when you're coming from Farmville, Virginia, where you're not really going to be recruiting that local market because there's just not going to be a lot there. As opposed to coming into a city where you actually could put a team together, a competitive team together, just of local players if you wanted to. Which isn't to say that's how she should build the program or how she would, but she has the ability to, and that's something that for too long, the women's program has not been able to do is keep that local talent home and win with them.
Which is why I think a lot of people were hoping for a coach like Deanna Jackson-Durrett.
Yeah. And if you don't get somebody like that, well, then how do you fill out the rest of the staff? So I'm going to be curious to see. I know they've hit the phones hard and tried to make it out and FaceTime with some of these people, but I don't know. I don't know when it's going to start paying off, the local efforts without having that the person who's that foot in the door.
One of the things that has come up, especially on the message board, which I made my triumphant return after my mental health break, so to speak. Thanks, Yuri Collins, for coming back. One of the arguments I kind of got into, not arguments, but discussion, was the idea of a head coach who has coached for, been at the helm of a program for maybe 6 or 7 years, right? Versus an assistant coach at a higher program that has had a long history as an assistant coach, worked their way up on assistant. Where do you stand as far as the experience? Like, what experience do you value when it comes to hire? You know what I mean? Am I explaining that right?
Well, I mean, we've talked about that a lot with regards to men's hires in the A10 in the last few years, because you kind of had a wave of young up and comers that they were trying to catch at the right time who didn't really pan out, whether it was McCall at UMass, Christian at George Washington, Howard at LaSalle. A lot of these guys just didn't really take. And they were kind of thought to be that next generation guy who, we can hire as an assistant, as an up and comer assistant now, kind of take us to the next level. And now you see these programs hiring Fran Dunphy, Archie Miller.
SEC did that like
Frank
4
Martin
years ago too.
Yeah, so they're hiring.
Same thing.
So now the programs are hiring guys who have kind of been to a higher level and come back down, or there's more than one way to get there. I think it you never really know who the right person at the right time is. I don't necessarily have a feeling like this person has to have this many years of head coaching experience, or it has to be an assistant who's from a power conference program with this many years of experience and in a power conference program. I don't know. I don't necessarily have requirements or guardrails like that. I just kind of want it to be the right fit at the right time. Hopefully that's the case here.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic because, I mean, if you look back at hires in all the sports, Ann Cordes was an assistant, right? Had a lot of success here. She was a major program assistant. Katie Shields was a mid-major, a SLU assistant, right? Just promoted. Kevin Kalish was a head coach for a long time, but had moved out of the profession. So it's hard to like you kind of alluded to, it's hard to predict really what the better. There's no foolproof way, right? Kent Miller was a head coach for a long time. And was an assistant at one point at high major programs. Like Ken Miller was also an assistant in Illinois, same as Ann Cordes was at one point. So even people that come from the same background don't pan out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just you just never know who the right person is. I think there's more than one way to get there.
Yeah.
And
I definitely think that Tillett has leaned into the culture. I think she believes in her culture. And if you believe in your culture, everybody else will believe in your culture. And I've said culture too many times. It's starting to sound like crayon. When you say it too many times, it's completely meaningless. But no, I think that is the most important thing. Like we talk about with Travis Ford, there are times where Travis Ford isn't the best in-game coach. Now, Travis Ford was masterful in the 2019 tournament, changing up defenses, great on-court coaching. But at the same time, a lot of what he does is master of motivation, and that if he believes it, like we'll go right back to this Mike Wilson interview where he wrote on the board, "Why not us?" He is convincing you. If he believes that we're going to win that 2019 A10 tournament, the whole team buys in. They believe in it. You know, you could have the worst strategy in the world, but if your team buys in and plays at a high level using that strategy, shit, you go places.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's right.
I mean, hey, if she found the magic, let's see if we can't bottle that shit up and win an A10 championship.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, one last note that I almost forgot to add into our notes about women's basketball: Miriam Smith Traore is. Are you really spell checking me right now in the notes?
I just happened to click there.
All right.
Take it easy.
It
is spelled wrong, but go ahead.
It's getting late. Miriam Smith Traore is heading to Duke for grad school. It is unclear whether or not she will play basketball, as far as last I checked.
Yeah, that surprised me. I mean, I mean, maybe there's a room for her. I mean, she was a senior academically this year. She does have the ability to play another season, I believe. Would she have 2 more years to play with the medical red shirt and the COVID bonus year?
Oh God, you're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, well, she will suffice it to say she would have at least 1 more year to play if she wanted it, and who knows, maybe Duke just kind of like, hey, we'll throw her at the end of the roster and see what happens. I mean, she's too good a player at our level not to have some role, even at a high level program like that, if she wanted it. But regardless, I mean, good for her. You know, Duke's obviously a very highly rated school, so to be able to go to grad school there is a pretty special thing. So
Yeah.
whatever she winds up doing, that's great.
I'm not seeing like anything about whether she's gonna play.
Maybe she could walk on.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, it says she posted that she's going to Duke to pursue a Master of Arts in Teaching. So she's looking to get her Master's in Teaching, which is awesome. And also Olivia Applewhite, former assistant under Lisa Stone, is now an assistant coach with Missouri State. So exciting news for her as well. Missouri State, a very well respected women's basketball program, not only in the Midwest but also nationwide. On the soccer side of things, just one note here: women's soccer adds an impressive transfer, I think.
Julia Simon from Louisville. She's got 3 years of eligibility left, which is great. You wrote here she was a very good forward on a not very good Louisville team. You know, I didn't know anything about
my vocabulary and my spelling. I get
no,
it.
I mean, it's well said. She's originally from Wheaton High School, Wheaton, Illinois, Wheaton North High School, which is a little west of Chicago. And like we said, 3 years left. She played in all 16 Louisville games this season, started 11 times, which is, you know, even if Louisville's not great, that's a freshman in the ACC, which is probably the best women's conference, and you know, averaged over half a game, had 4 goals and 3 assists this season, and just seemed like a really nice young player. I think this on paper looks like a really impressive addition to me.
Yeah, I like this a lot. You know, big forward. She'll hopefully bring some goals to this Billiken squad and just add to the scoring punch that we've already had the last few years. So
Well, I mean that's arguably kind of what we were missing this past season, right? When they were kind of goal challenged. We wondered if who was it who went down with the injury? Hannah Larson.
Yes, yes.
In the beginning of the season, who was that really dynamic freshman the year before, kind of missed that little scoring punch, and now should have a lot more firepower coming back this season, especially with this transfer here.
On the baseball side of things, the Billikens had a tough weekend. It was a lot of college baseball. We'll put it that way. Very college baseball-y weekend for the Billikens, Pete.
Yeah, you've really been leaning into that narrative lately. That college baseball is like no lead is safe. Anything can happen. If you've got a 4-run lead going into the ninth, that's not even close to over. And
the idea of a save being 4 runs
yeah,
it's not a thing in college baseball. You should get a save for 8 runs. It's like a handicap in golf.
The idea of a save being a statistic in college baseball is actually kind of funny. Because it's such a fluky thing. But yeah, SLU kind of came out strong in this one, and headed into the bottom of the 4th with a 5-0 lead. And then again, in the top of the 9th, they added 3 more, even though Rhode Island had gotten a few back. They gave up a 4-run lead in the bottom of the 9th in this one, and then unfortunately, in the first game, Rhode Island puts it away in the 10th with a RBI single.
Yeah, on the this is just a random note that nobody cares about, but like I went to the gym right after work watching this game, and I'm walking on the treadmill, and I was gonna walk for an hour on the treadmill, and I made it through my entire at 4:30. The game started at 2. I get on the treadmill at like 4:40, and I walk for an hour, and it's still going. Like I got back home, and the game was still on. In extra innings, absurd.
Official game time was 3:50 for a 10-inning game.
And that 9th inning took an hour to finish.
Yeah, that's a long game.
It was brutal. But Grant Fremion takes the loss in this one.
SLU did have 4 homers in this one, so that was pretty cool actually. But
a lot of runs
a shame.
Scored
It's a shame that you hit 4 home runs in a losing effort.
Yeah, 40 runs. Let's see, how many runs were scored? 40, 21, 61, 67 runs this weekend over 3 games. Am I getting that right? I think
it's just incredible.
Not much of a pitcher's duel. Not much of a Pittsburgh Pirates, Cincinnati Reds Sunday afternoon no-hitter. For all you Major League fans out there. Saturday. Another just bizarre game, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, talk about not a pitcher's duel in the first one. Even less in this one. A 19-13 loss at Rhode Island in this one. Kane, Youngbrandt, and Hendrickson unfortunately got shelled for a combined 18 runs. And SLU had a 7-run 8th inning, and it was not enough for a comeback. Given the lead that they had given up. Rhode Island had 2 in the first, 2 in the second, 7 in the third, 5 in the fourth, 2 in the fifth, and 1 in the sixth before they could finally stop the bleeding. And then those 7 in the 8th for SLU, not even close to enough to come back in this one. Just a bloodbath.
Yeah, it was. It's so hard. It's so hard. Baseball is college baseball. Sunday though, it's good things happen on Sunday. Billikens get a win, and they're the ones who blow it open in the 9th.
Yeah, this one winds up being a 12-6 win for SLU. It was like you say, kind of back and forth before that. SLU got out to a 3-1 lead. And then it was tied by the end of the 4th, and they kind of traded off innings after that. SLU gets 1 in the 5th, Rhode Island 1 in the 6th, SLU 2 in the 7th, and Rhode Island gets 1 back in the 8th, and then finally in the 9th, SLU put together a 5-run inning, just strung together a lot of hits and finally put this one away. It's great to see, after 2 just really tough pitching performances in the 2 previous days, it's good to see them get the win in this one.
Yeah, and then, dude, this was a weird one though too because there was I believe the announcers are interesting for these games. God bless Colin Surrey and anybody else who's done announcing for SLU on ESPN Plus. They do a phenomenal job because watching some of these, they don't the announcers really have no clue what's happening. And I'm pretty sure that there was a balk called for the pitcher going to his mouth right after he threw a pitch in the ninth, and ended up with being part of that 6-run ninth. It kind of led to that kind of outburst in the ninth. Another interesting note on this series: Zach Fernandez. It was either Zach Hernandez or Zach Fernandez. I can't remember his name. But twice had interesting. He was part of 2 separate controversies in this series. The first being he's wearing a belt like the football players wear, the hand warmer with like the plays on him, but he's got pitch card signs on his belt, and the Billikens and Hendrickson complained about that in the second game, I think. And that was kind of a weird situation. But then he was the one also called for the balk in game 3. So 2 different points of controversy between that pitcher and then the Billiken bench. So that was an interesting subplot. The end of their regular season is coming up. 5/17 at Carbondale, 5/19 through the 21st versus Dayton at home. This is kind of weird because there's no Sunday game this week.
Yeah, maybe they want to wrap things up on Saturday so they can kind of organize the A10 Championship wrap things up on Saturday so they can organize the A10 tournament on Sunday. And this is another one we're heading into. Just like softball, there's a lot of seeds yet to be decided in this league heading into the final week. Davidson's way out in front at 18-3. VCU, I guess, is not too far behind at 16-5. But then you have Rhode Island 13-8, SLU 12-8, Mason 12-8. Before you get to a big cluster of teams with either 8 or 9 wins. So there could be some pretty big swings in seeds this weekend, depending on what happens. It would definitely be in SLU's best interest to just go ahead and sweep Dayton here and take maybe take a 3 seed.
Yeah, I think I don't remember if we really talked about it on a previous episode, but that Davidson series going into Sunday, they have hard cut lines for the game on Sunday. Baseball scheduling is so serious with logistics. It changes the way games are played.
Yeah.
And it changes coaching. It makes coaching decisions that much more difficult in game.
Difficult, but I think it's kind of interesting too. It's like
is.
an extra wrench they've thrown in, like a constraint. But okay, I want to win this game, but I also have to be on a plane by this time.
It's like betting the spread.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I'm excited to catch these 3 games. I probably won't catch them in person, but I'm excited to watch them for sure. I love anytime the Arch Baron Cup is on the line. Throw out the record books. Dayton hasn't been very good, as I believe you mentioned, 22-24, 9-11 in conference. But where's the A10 Championship, Pete? I don't.
So this season, the A10 Championship will be at lovely Davidson, North Carolina. So, the 1 seed's going to be hosting this thing, and they've got a great facility. Should be good weather down there. So I imagine it'll be a pretty great tournament atmosphere.
Softball ends their season 22-29, 13-10 in conference with kind of a yeah. It was an exciting first game though, versus Dayton in the first round of the A10 softball championship.
It was, and I had the fortune of being able to watch this one, even though it was kind of on during the weekday. I just had kind of a weird afternoon lull and was able to get in most of this one, and actually really saw all of SLU's scoring because SLU got out to a 3-0 deficit against Dayton.
It could have.
Um,
It hinged on. There was. I mean, it was. That I think what it Dayton had bases loaded, and Hockman comes in, and it hinged on a 3-2 count.
right.
It,
Yeah. This one. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Wendling started, gave up 3 runs in 3 1/3. Hockman got her out of that jam, and then bottom of the fourth, SLU ties it, and then comes back in the fifth and sixth with 2 runs apiece in those innings. Just a great performance by Hockman coming in there and kind of having Wendling's back on what wasn't her best day, but this was a fun game to watch. SLU really played with a lot of energy, and as soon as they got that first run, it just kind of felt like everything really swung. I think you're right. I think it was getting out of that jam. All of a sudden, this became a different game, and they just shut Dayton down after that.
yeah, Dayton would get their revenge later, but first the Billikens had to go up against George Washington, and in this one, it really felt like the minute George Washington got out to a lead, that there was just no chance. I mean, GW has been dominant all year, and I really thought GW was going to go on and win the tournament. Unfortunately, I believe Fordham ended up being the A10 champion. But once GW scored a run, I knew A, they would get more, and B, I knew that SLU was going to have a tough time catching them.
It's interesting though because SLU really held them off those first couple innings. They did have that 2-run third. GW did. It was just kind of, they strung a few singles together. Nothing major, and then SLU managed to tie it in the top of the sixth. They did a great job.
You're right. You're right.
They did a great job
It was the second time that
right.
when George. Yeah.
Yeah, and George Washington got both of those right back for the 4-2 win. SLU came up empty in the seventh. But I don't know. I thought SLU did a pretty good job of holding them close in this one. Wendling pitched well. It wasn't a perfect game. It wasn't a dominant game, but she did force a lot of outs. So I don't know. I think it was just a solid performance against a very, very, very good team.
You're absolutely right.
That they were underdogs. And unfortunately, because of the double elimination format, swung back around and we caught Dayton on the wrong day the second time.
Yeah, 10-1 loss. Dayton was out for blood in this one. They were not happy. The cup just means more, man. And they wanted it more.
Yeah, they got out to that 2-0 lead. SLU got one back in the second, and then Dayton really blew it open in the third, and it kind of felt like that was it. And that's pretty much what happened. They got 3 more insurance runs in the seventh to make it a 10-1. A 10-1 loss for SLU. Hockman, as heroic as she was against Dayton in that first game, gave up 7 in 2 2/3 in this one. Wendling was a little better, 4 1/3 inning, 2 earned runs, and just not their day, unfortunately, against a team they know they can beat.
Nope, not their day at all. Pete, before we wrap things up, any last words for the Billiken fans?
No, I got nothing else, Zach. I think we covered it all this week. I guess if I have to come up with something, if you haven't listened to some of our recent interviews because they're not necessarily big names that you already know, go back and give them a listen. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think Colin Surrey hasn't gotten the love on that interview that he really deserves.
Yeah, that's one that I kind of had in mind. I think it's pretty interesting to hear his perspective, and I think people will really like that if they haven't listened to that one yet.
And speaking of which, watch the Dayton series this weekend. Surrey will be on the call, and there's no doubt that he will do a better job than 90% of A10 baseball and softball announcers, if not, the guy who goes pow at LaSalle. Sorry, I had to take a shot. But yeah, go check out the Billiken baseball game this weekend. Surrey does a great job on the mic, not to mention the great job Hendrickson has done, slowly building that program and keeping it in tip-top shape and, very competitive. But that wraps up the week that was in Billiken Athletics. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod. At Peter is a tweeter, all lowercase. At Zach Miller, MMP. And we also appreciate any suggestions you might have for the show. So drop us a line. Don't be afraid. Please go subscribe to the show on all platforms. If you haven't left us a review, go and do that. 5 stars is awesome, but if you like 4, whatever, 4 is fine. Also on Instagram now. We're working on it. It's an experiment. You can at least watch us fumble around with it for a while. As always, Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.